In October 1939, World War II lasted only a month. German troops occupied Poland and the focus of the war was shifted towards Western Europe, where Great Britain and France stood against Germany. The first British troops began to arrive in France, and the French army was in the process of organizing and preparing for war. While nothing happened on the land, the conflict moved to the sea. German submarines freely hunted merchant and war ships, not yet prepared for war. A convoy system was established. However, a large number of British and French merchant ships still sailed the oceans on their own. On October 8, 1939, a single submarine set sail from the base in Kiel, on what seemed like any other ordinary patrol. The submarine was a U-47, under the command of Captain Günther Prien. The U-47 was a Type 7 submarine, one of 22 operational at the time. Type 7 U-boat was the workhorse of the German Navy submarine fleet. It was an uncomfortable vessel, relatively slow and with limited operational range, but despite the shortcomings it was also a very effective weapon, easy to manufacture and produced in a large number. Armed with one 88mm, and one 20mm anti-aircraft cannon, Type 7 U-boat had 4 bow torpedo tubes and one in the stern, and could carry 14 533mm torpedoes. No one on the boat, except the captain, knew what the mission of U-47 was. The crew thought it was another routine patrol with the aim to hunt and sink the merchant ships. Few days after they left the base, crew of U-47 noticed ships on the horizon. They were surprised. When the captain avoided the attack, it was not something they were used to. They soon became suspicious. They felt that this patrol was different from the others. And they were right. Their mission was to infiltrate the Royal Navy base at Scapa Flow and to destroy as many ships as possible. The creator of this plan was Karl Dönitz, commander of the German Navy submarine fleet. Karl Dönitz was a submarine commander during the World War I. He knew very well how effective these weapons can be. In order to achieve successful naval blockade of Great Britain, he would need much more submarines than he had at his disposal in 1939. He was trying to convince Hitler about the need for at least 300 operational U-boats to achieve decisive success against Britain. He also wanted to prove that submarines can be effective against warships. The raid on Scapa Flow was to prove his point. The naval base at Scapa Flow was the main anchorage for the British Grand Fleet throughout most of the First World War. And it was reactivated as the naval base at the beginning of the Second World War. Situated at the centre of the Orkney Islands off the north coast of Scotland, it was the natural harbour, and an ideal anchorage. It was also on great strategic position, ideal for North Sea blockade, and far away from German air bases and out of range of Luftwaffe bombers. In October 1939, the Scapa Flow was not yet fully prepared for the use. Defensive preparations were still ongoing. Block ships were sunk at critical points. But anti-submarine barriers were not completed in all channels. Anti-aircraft defense was weak. It did not go unnoticed. Dönitz had information obtained through air reconnaissance about the weaknesses of the defenses. Everything was ready for Special Operation P, as was the code name given to the mission. Günther Prien, a 31-year-old submarine commander, was specially selected for the task by Dönitz. According to Dönitz, Prien possessed all the personal qualities and professional abilities required for this hazardous mission. Prien was a rising star among submarine commanders, who was credited with sinking a few ships during his first patrol. To avoid detection, U-47 was on surface only during the night. At the daylight, submarine sat on the seabed. During the voyage, Prien briefed the crew about the mission. They avoided ships and slowly approached their destination. On October 13, 1939, Crew on the conning tower noticed the land. These were the hills of the Orkney Islands. It was almost dawn, an order for dive was issued, and the submarine disappeared silently from the surface. Sat on the seabed and waited. According to plan, the mission was to be carried out during the night. Prien had all the information about the shortcomings of the defense, as well as about the currents and the tides in the area. When night fell, they went into action. After a whole day of waiting, liveliness reigned again in the submarine. In a short time, they were on the surface again. After a while, the ship in the distance made them to dive. At 10 p.m., the submarine surfaced again. Navigating slowly, through narrow canals, avoiding block ships at 12:27 a.m., U-47 entered Scapa Flow. However, it was only a half of the job. Scapa Flow is a huge bay. Now they needed to find the targets. In the darkness of the night, the outlines of the ships were hidden in the shadows of the surrounding hills. Eventually they spotted two targets worth attacking. First one was a battleship HMS Royal Oak, and right behind an old seaplane tender, HMS Pegasus, which the submarine crew incorrectly identified as a second battleship. HMS Royal Oak was mighty ship, veteran of World War I, still in active service and just returned from the mission. The battleship was the most valuable target Prien could wish for. After First World War, German fleet surrendered to the British and was scuttled right here, in the Scapa Flow. This left Germany without capital ships, which also gave the Royal Navy a significant advantage. The Royal Navy dominated the seas. In the interwar period, the Germans tried to compensate shortage of capital ships by building so-called pocket battleships. Smaller units, with main armament on the same level as on the battleship. If U-47 succeeds, it will persuade Hitler to shift production from capital ships to submarines. At 12:55 a.m., U-47 was in position for the attack. After calculation, a short order was given, and first round of torpedoes were fired. The seconds lasted like an eternity. After a few minutes, a loud explosion broke through the bay. What happened to the other torpedoes fired, no one knew. Wasting no time, Prien turned his submarine and headed for the exit. During the escape, he realized that nothing was happening, no searchlights, no alarm, everything was quiet. The opportunity was still there, and it was too good to be missed. Prien made the decision to attack again. Without hesitation, he gave the order and the submarine slowly turned towards the battleship. On board HMS Royal Oak, explosion shook the ship, and woke the crew. Officers on duty tried to find out the cause of the explosion. Unaware the ship was under attack, they did not sound the alarm, and majority of crew returned to their hammocks. After 15 minutes, torpedo tubes were reloaded, and U-47 was in position for the second attack. Calculations were made again, this time more carefully. In 1:13 a.m., a second round of torpedoes was on the way. This time all three torpedoes hit the starboard side of HMS Royal Oak. 13 minutes later, HMS Royal Oak sank with 835 seamen, of which 134 were boy seamen, not yet 18 years old. After the explosion of three torpedoes, it became clear to everyone that the anchorage was under attack. The alarm was activated, and searchlights were lit. This forced U-47 to dive to the periscope depth. Navigating through the same channel through which she entered, this time struggling with a stronger current, at 2:15 a.m., U-47 exit the Scapa Flow. Reaching the open sea of the North Sea, she disappeared into the darkness of the night. What was supposed to be a suicide mission turned into a sensational success. On October 17, 1939, U-47 returned to base in Kiel, where they received hero's welcome. Prien and his crew were flown to Berlin, to receive medals from Hitler personally. Prien was awarded the Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross. Günther Prien will become one of the most successful Germany's submarine commander, however luck will not follow him for long. During the attack on convoy in North Atlantic, on the 7th of March 1941, Günther Prien, and all 45 crewmen of U-47 will disappear. They were probably sunk into the depths of the Atlantic.